Welcome back to Be Fluent in Russian podcast. Let's read some Chekhov. We are about one quarter into the third chapter. Here's where we left off, is when he was thinking about his love affair in Yalta. He confessed about it to his friends, and his friends never even seemed to mind it, just like as if he didn't even notice it. Talking about, oh yeah, that fish was a bit off, huh? So let's continue from that point on. Эти слова, такие обычные, почему-то вдруг возмутили Гурова, показались ему унизительными, нечистыми. These words, so ordinary, suddenly outraged Gurov for some reason. They seemed humiliating, unclean to him. Эти слова, these words, обычные, typical, regular, унизительные, demeaning or humiliating, нечистые, unclean or dirty. Нечистые, so чистый is clean. But how can words be really clean, right? Clean words, like what, not swear words? I think that нечистыми can also be, so нечистая сила, unclean power, is a phrase that we have in Russian that talks about evil, the devil, нечистая сила. So these words that he said can also be like these evil words. That's how I interpret this. So слова, they were so typical, right? Обычные. But they seem to him humiliating, унизительными, нечистыми, unclean. And this adjective унизительными, so we have this stem, низ, which means bottom. Okay? Низ. As a, like, let's just imagine as a bottom of the building. That's низ. Унизить means to make somebody low, or to lower somebody, or to humiliate somebody. Унизить. And then we create an adjective from this, унизительные, which means demeaning, humiliating something. In this case, it's words. And another great verb, показались ему. Показались ему means seemed to him or appeared to him. Показаться, so показать means to show. Показаться means to show yourself. So these words show themselves to him as unclean and humiliating. But показаться means it seemed to me, it appeared to me. I guess just like if we think of those words to show, to appear, to seem, they kind of mean the same thing. So, yeah. Какие дикие нравы, какие лица, что за бестолковые ночи, какие неинтересные, незаметные дни. And then this kind of continues. Неистовая игра в карты, обжорство, пьянство, постоянные разговоры, все об одном. That's what he's thinking. What wild manners, what faces, what senseless nights, what remarkable days, the frenzied card games, gluttony, when you're like overeating, drunkenness, endless conversations about the same things. So all of a sudden, he played cards with his friends, and this guy talks about food when you're confessing your wildest experiences that you have gotten through this past day. How terrible of a contrast. You're in this elated state. And I'm sure that all of you guys listeners experience this. When you are in a state of bliss, in a state of amazement, when you're elated beyond belief, you're trying to communicate that to somebody else right next to you, seemingly experiencing the same thing, but they just turn into something very mundane and very everyday, right? So you are this above the clouds. You are in the best state that you can be, but the person that you want to share this emotion with doesn't share it with you. So immediately you turn to disgust. It's disgusting. How can you be so consumed by the everyday? Think about the higher things. So, какие дикие нравы, what wild manners. Какие лица, what kind of faces. Что за бестолковые ночи? What are these senseless nights? Что за doesn't really mean what for. За has a secret meaning. In fact, let me take a note about this за to make a video about it on YouTube. It's a very interesting word. Что за as a phrase means what kind of something. Бестолковые means without sense or senseless. Ночи, of course, nights. Какие неинтересные, незаметные дни. What uninteresting, unremarkable days. I'm in this state of bliss, and these are faces that I'm seeing. Terrible. Неистовая игра в карты. The frenzied card games when you lose your mind. Gluttony. Maybe gluttony, I'm not sure if that's pronounced correctly here. Gluttony, if I say it right. But like overeating. Пьянство. Drunkenness. Постоянные разговоры. Все об одном. Endless conversations. All about the same thing. So, yeah. Ненужные дела и разговоры все об одном охватывают на свою долю лучшую часть времени, лучшие силы. И в конце концов остается какая-то куцая, бескрылая жизнь, какая-то чепуха, и уйти и бежать нельзя. Точно сидишь в сумасшедшем доме или в арестантских ротах. This is deep. Unnecessary matters and conversations about the same things take up the best part of the time. This is the part in English. Let me read it again in Russian. Ненужные дела, unnecessary matters, unnecessary things. И разговоры все об одном, and conversation about the same thing, охватывают, take up, на свою долю, take up in and of itself, or take in its part, лучшую часть времени, the best part of time. Лучшие силы, the best energies, or the best powers. Сила here means energy when it comes to being able to go for a long time. Like сила, not strength, but endurance. И в конце концов, and in the end, в конце концов means at the end of ends. В конце концов means in the end or at the end of a day. Остается какая-то куцая, бескрылая жизнь. A stunted, wingless life remains. Какая-то чепуха, some nonsense. И уйти и бежать нельзя. And you cannot run, and you cannot leave. Точно сидишь в сумасшедшем доме, as if you're sitting in a madhouse, или в арестантских ротах, or a prison camp. Whew, deep stuff. So, he says this crazy stuff, this card games, this drinking and talking about the same thing over and over and over again, you cannot escape that. It takes up the best part of your life, the best part of your endurance as a person, and wingless, stunted life remains. As if you're in a madhouse. Crazy stuff. Chekhov really doing his thing. Gurov не спал всю ночь и возмущался, и затем весь день провел с головной болью. Gurov didn't sleep all night, fuming, and then spent the whole day with a headache. И в следующие ночи он спал дурно. Все сидел в постели и думал или ходил из угла в угол. And in the following nights he slept poorly, always sitting up in the bed and thinking, or pacing back and forth. Couldn't sleep. Headache, couldn't sleep. Why? Does he understand the dullness of life? All of a sudden that he's experienced something pure? Maybe. Дети ему надоели. Банк надоел. Не хотелось никуда идти, ни о чем говорить. The children annoyed him. The bank annoyed him. I think he's working in a bank, right? He didn't want to go anywhere. Didn't want to talk about anything. Дети ему надоели. So, in Russian, we say, I'm annoyed with this, or you are annoying. But we're describing the person, you are annoying. But we also have a verb annoyed, to annoy somebody. And in Russian, that's what we use. We say that something annoyed me, something annoys me, something annoyed me. So, дети ему надоели, the kids annoyed him. Банк надоел, the bank annoyed. Of course, him again. Не хотелось никуда идти. So we have these two verbs. Я хочу and мне хочется. Я хочу means I want. Мне хочется I feel like. So мне хочется is like something feels to me. Мне хочется спать. The sleep feels to me. Okay, that's kind of the literal translation of it, but it means I feel like doing something. Не хотелось никуда идти. He didn't want to go anywhere, or he didn't feel like going anywhere. It's not like, let's say, it's not a conscious thought, it's not a conscious decision. I don't want. That's more of a conscious thing. I don't feel like, it's less conscious. It's more of something on the outside telling me, I don't want to do this. В декабре на праздниках он собрался в дорогу и сказал жене, что уезжает в Петербург хлопотать за одного молодого человека. И уехал в С. So, this last part, back in those days of Chekhov, of Pushkin, of Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, sometimes the cities, you wouldn't write a whole city name. You see this a whole lot when they shorten the city name just to the first letter. Like here, уехал в С. What is S? It's a city, but what kind of a city? I'm not sure why they would shorten it, maybe to avoid revealing a secret, maybe to communicate to their friends or those who were in their circle, because they would understand what kind of city it is, but they wouldn't want the propaganda people to read it and also understand what city they're talking about. Maybe because they have a secret connection with that place, something like that. And during Soviet Union, during the Tsar or like the royal times of Russia, there was a lot of propaganda. And so if you want to keep something a secret, then you would do that. People of your circle would know what the city is because they probably have the same connection with the city, but you just simply don't put it in writing. So those who are doing the filtering out of your content, of your writings, wouldn't have a problem with this. So, в декабре на праздниках, in December, during the holidays, он собрался в дорогу и сказал жене. He prepared to leave, or he packed up his stuff to go to leave. В дорогу means to the road. So he packed to the road, meaning he packed to get on the road. He packed to leave. И сказал жене, and told his wife, что уезжает в Петербург, that he is going to St. Petersburg. Хлопотать за одного молодого человека. To help a young man. Хлопотать за одного means to help instead of him. Maybe talking to somebody to position that person in the best way. So again, back in royal times, if you served the state, right, you could help somebody else get into position by just simply talking to somebody. It wasn't as much of like this HR stuff happening then. So maybe he's talking about the fact that he just wants to talk to somebody, to position somebody else. Who knows? И уехал в С. And he left for S, the city of S. Of course, it's not St. Petersburg because he just mentioned Peterburg right above. Maybe that means Sankt Peterburg. Who knows? Actually, no. Probably it's a different city. Зачем? Он и сам не знал хорошо. Why? For what? He didn't know exactly himself. Он и сам. И сам. Here we have a phrase. Он и сам не знал. He did not know. But why do we have this E? E means and, right? Not always. И sometimes is used for the emphasis. Он и сам. He himself did not know хорошо. Well, here E means that сам is the main word. He himself did not know exactly. Okay? So и сам, he indeed himself not know exactly. So E here adds emphasis to outline the main word of this sentence. Ему хотелось повидаться с Анной Сергеевной и поговорить, устроить свидание, если можно. He wanted to see Anna Sergeyevna, his love of Yalta, to talk, to arrange a meeting if possible. Приехал он в С, город С, the city С, утром и занял в гостинице лучший номер, где весь пол был обтянут серым солдатским сукном и была на столе чернильница, серая от пыли, со всадником на лошади, у которого была поднята одна рука со шляпой, а голова отбита. He arrived in the city of S in the morning and took the best room in the hotel, where the entire floor was covered by gray soldier's cloth, and on the table was an inkwell, gray with dust, with the rider on a horse, whose hand was raised holding a hat, but the head was broken off. So he arrived in the best hotel, maybe to surprise Анна Сергеевна, who knows. Швейцар дал ему нужные сведения. Фон Дидериц живет на Старо-Гончарной улице, в собственном доме. Это недалеко от гостиницы. Живет хорошо, богато, имеет своих лошадей. Его все знают в городе. The porter gave him the necessary information. So in Russian we have Швейцар. Швейцар is a Swiss. So we call a porter, so a person who is helping with the hotel, like who is the main host of the hotel. We call him a Swiss. I don't know. He doesn't have to be a Swiss person. Okay? Дал ему нужные сведения. He gave him needed information. Von Dideritz, which is the name of the person, the husband of Anna Sergeyevna, живет на Старо-Гончарной улице. Lives on Старо-Гончарная street. В собственном доме, in his own house. In the owned house. Собственный means his own. Это недалеко от гостиницы. It's not far from the hotel. Живет хорошо, богато. He lives well and rich and has his own horses. Имеет своих лошадей. Его знают все в городе. Everybody knows him in this town. Next. Швейцар выговаривал так. Дрыдериц. The porter pronounced it as Drideritz, not Dideritz, but Dr. Instead of Dideritz, which is pretty simple, he said Drideritz. It's a bit different. Гуров не спеша пошел на Старо-Гончарную, отыскал дом. Gurov leisurely walked to Старо-Гончарная улица or street and found the house. Отыскал дом means found the house. Как раз против дома тянулся забор. Серый, длинный, с гвоздями. Right across from the house was a fence. Gray, long, with nails sticking out. Nails, of course, construction nails, not your fingernails. Как раз против дома means like right across from the house. So it was a big, big fence. And the last sentence for today. От такого забора убежишь, думал Гуров, поглядывая то на окна, то на забор. You could run away from a fence like this, thought Gurov, glancing at the windows, then at the fence. What he means here, от такого забора убежишь, what he means, one would want to run away from this kind of a fence. One would definitely want to run away from this fence. What does that mean? This fence was so big, I'm taking, that it felt like a secluded place, that you don't go beyond this fence, so you are kind of in captivity. And as a wife, over those times, you are pretty much a housewife as a given. You don't have that many positions of serving the country, because most of them were either military or military-related stuff. So only men would be really called to work at those jobs. So as a wife, you want to run away from this kind of stuff, right? Okay, and that's all. So he came up to this house, and we're going to continue reading about that in the next podcast. Let me reread this whole text that we have read today, just to sum everything up. Эти слова, такие обычные, почему-то вдруг возмутили Гурова, показались ему унизительными, нечистыми. Какие дикие нравы, какие лица, что за бестолковые ночи, какие неинтересные, незаметные дни, неистовая игра в карты, обжорство, пьянство, постоянные разговоры все об одном. Ненужные дела и разговоры все об одном охватывают на свою долю лучшую часть времени, лучшие силы. И в конце концов остается какая-то куцая, бескрылая жизнь, какая-то чепуха, и уйти и бежать нельзя. Точно сидишь в сумасшедшем доме или в арестантских ротах. Гуров не спал всю ночь и возмущался. и затем весь день провел с головной болью. И в следующей ночи он спал дурно. Все сидел в постели и думал, или ходил из угла в угол. Дети ему надоели, банк надоел, не хотелось никуда идти, ни о чем говорить. В декабре на праздниках он собрался в дорогу и сказал жене, что уезжает в Петербург хлопотать за одного молодого человека. И уехал в С. Зачем? Он и сам не знал хорошо. Ему хотелось повидаться с Анной Сергеевной и поговорить, устроить свидание, если можно. Приехал он в С утром и занял в гостинице лучший номер, где весь пол был обтянут серым солдатским сукном и была на столе чернильница, серая от пыли, со всадником на лошади, у которого была поднята рука со шляпой, а голова отбита. Швейцар дал ему нужные сведения. Фон Дидериц живет на старой Гончарной улице, в собственном доме, это недалеко от гостиницы. Живет хорошо, богато, имеет своих лошадей. Его все знают в городе. Швейцар выговаривал так: «Дрыдериц». Гуров не спеша пошел на Старогончарную, отыскал дом. Как раз против дома тянулся забор, серый, длинный, с гвоздями. «От такого забора убежишь», — думал Гуров, поглядывая то на окна, то на забор. And that is all. Hope you've learned something useful like I have. And that's all. See you guys next time during the next podcast or over at Be Fluent. Learn Russian with us and learn to speak Russian freely with your family and friends and your loved ones. That's all. Join us with the first link in the description. And I see you all there and during the next podcast.